Okay, wonderful. And we are live. I'll admit everyone into the meeting, and I will begin recording as well so that folks know that this is a recorded meeting. I will introduce you, of course, Rajesh, and then I'll turn it over to you. Is that okay?
Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Vineet Chander. I direct the Hindu Life program at Princeton University, part of our Office of Religious Life here at Princeton. And we're so delighted that you could join us on this chilly Thursday evening. At least it's chilly here in Princeton, New Jersey. I know we have some folks joining us from warmer climates. But we are here to explore a topic of I would say near universal relevance, if not universal relevance, and that is happiness. And so I will, in just a few moments, introduce our esteemed guest speaker, and then I will turn it over to him. So thank you so much for joining us. As you may have noticed, you are muted out, and we will make every effort to take your questions. So if you could, at any point during the presentation, if you would like to ask a question for our Q&A period, please go ahead and chat that to me in the chat box. Please send that directly to me. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to compile and curate the questions. Sometimes there's repetition or there's overlap with the questions, and we want to make the most of our time together. So I will put those together, and then I will be able to put them towards our guest speaker. And of course, during the Q&A period, we can also reset it so that everyone can unmute themselves if they would like to ask a question personally or share a comment or reflection. So with that, let me say a few words of introduction for our guest speaker. We're so happy to have with us author Rajesh Sengamedu. Rajesh is the author of Happiness Beyond Mind, Rising Above Helplessness, Conflicts, and Choices. He has been a seeker and a yoga and meditation practitioner for over 30 years. In terms of his corporate experience, Rajesh has an enviable CV. He serves as an AVP with the tech giant Altran and the Cisco client team. He's also worked with companies such as SanDisk and Saskin, among other leaders in the field. He earned degrees from the renowned BITS Pilani as well as IMDR Pune, and has studied at Stanford University as well. Alongside his commendable achievements in secular and in secular and corporate spaces, Rajesh has also started to establish himself as a thought leader within the sphere of yoga, mindfulness, spirituality, and life vision work. He is a certified yoga teacher and wellness coach, and has trained several hundred people in yoga as well as meditation. For the past half a decade, Rajesh has been conducting online meditation and Bhagavad Gita classes. He is an active blogger and a podcaster on the practical applications of yoga and Vedanta principles to help one to lead a more happy, contented, purpose-driven life. His coaching style, which is based on Vedanta principles, combines Hatha Yoga bodywork, pranayam breathwork, meditation mind work, and diet management. He draws from his study with teachers in the Advaita Vedantin Arsha Vidya lineage of Swami Dayanand Saraswati ji. We are so delighted to have this opportunity to host Rajesh. We're sure it's going to be an insightful, thoughtful, and thought-provoking discussion. Let's please give him a very warm Princeton University welcome.
Thank you so much, Vinit ji. I really appreciate this opportunity to speak with the audience here. Thank you so much. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. And welcome to this small talk. And my name is Rajesh. For this talk, I prepared a couple of slides so that we can go through in a smooth way. And feel free to interrupt me or ask any questions that you would like to ask at any point of time. So with that said, let me just quickly share my screen and then we can take it away. All right. So before I start, just want to say a small prayer. Sadashiva Samarambham, Shankaracharya Madhyamam, Asmadacharya Paryantam, Vande Guru Paramparam. So when the Creator created this universe, whether there's a creator or not, that's a different topic, but we know that the creation exists. When this universe exists, he also created a user manual for all of us to use it. Even in a household appliance like a fridge or a TV or even a USB stick today has a user manual. It's obvious that, such a big creation must have a user manual. And the user manual is called as Vedas. And these user manuals, they come through how to use the universe for our spiritual benefit and our spiritual progress, come through a lineage of teachers. And this prayer is to venerate all those teachers who have taught this from the age immemorial. So this information, some of the key principles that I'm sharing in this presentation has been there ever since the universe has been created. Nothing new. So the agenda is threefolds. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my story. And my story is not unique. It's a story, and it will be used as an example to dive deeper into understanding and extrapolating to what the human problem is. And once we have understood that, we will also talk about the path to completion as to what it is. Okay, this is the most boring part of the story, so please bear with me. So who am I? I'm a happiness seeker, if you ask me. That's how I would define myself.
Rajeshji, I'm so sorry to interrupt. Some of the folks in our audience are letting me know that we're having a little bit of difficulty hearing you. Your mic seems to be cutting in and out. Would it be possible to maybe reposition yourself to get a little bit closer to that mic?
Okay. Yeah. Is this better? Let me just check. Is this better?
It sounds a little bit better. Yeah.
Okay. So let me start off again here. So if you ask me, who am I? I am a happiness seeker, right? So I'm just going to go through a little bit of my journey with you guys and use that as an example to, dive deeper. So I'm 51 now. Till 1999, I was leading a life which is very, very easy to understand. Just having fun, eat, drink, chase, career, relationships, friends, money, all that stuff. So what I was noticing at the time was I was actually seeking happiness in whatever I was trying to do. And importantly, whenever there was any sort of a pain or a suffering or a discomfort, I was trying to eliminate it, be it a physical discomfort or an emotional discomfort. You had a tiff with someone, you figure out a way of getting that thing off and things like that. So never bothered. Life was just good. It was great fun. 1999, was the first time it happened. Me and my wife, we were expecting our first kid, and unfortunately, we lost the pregnancy. It was a loss, and it struck me, why? Why me? Why should it happen to me? What did I do to deserve this? And I went into a depression. Someone told me, hey, go learn Vipassana as a technique. It'll help you calm your mind. I went and learned Vipassana, and I still practice Vipassana even today. It's great. But the question never went away. Fast forward to 2000, my daughter was born. She's 20 now. She's in college. And when I saw that girl, a newborn girl, I was filled with happiness, and the sadness of the past loss got erased. But the question remained, why me? What did I do to deserve this beautiful girl in my life? The question remained. And then, 2003, a good friend of ours, she passed away. She lost her life to cancer. A couple of weeks later, my son was born. Again, the same thing. Why me? What happened? All these events that are happening in my life, okay, they're impacting me in some fashion. And the inquiry started, okay? I started asking, why me, right? And then still continue to have the fun, no doubt about it. In 2015 is when all the puzzle pieces start falling together. That's when I met my guru. And then I slowly started changing the direction of my ship into the real path, which is going to take us to the ultimate happiness, right? So the big shift that happened in my life was the question, the why me question remained, and it continues to remain, but the emphasis changed. Instead of saying why me, why, I started looking more at me, because the mirror that I was trying to use to reflect on who I was, who am I, was different than the traditional mirrors that we were using. And we'll talk about that a little later. So if you look at it, all my journey, despite all the ups and downs and the challenges that, an ordinary middle class person goes through, all the while, I was looking for happiness, a sort of an unrestricted, unbound freedom, happiness with no limitations. That's what I was looking for. Right? In all the efforts, what I was trying to do. But then there is a huge problem. What exactly is happiness? I asked myself the same question. Let's try to understand. If you, let's say you are eating a piece of sweet, if someone asks you, what is sweetness? I'm pretty sure it'll be very difficult to answer. When we can't even answer what is sweetness, it is not very easy to answer happiness. We all feel happy. We all become happy. And we also become unhappy. But what exactly is happiness? Have you ever thought about it? So I did a few observations. I'm pretty sure, you will relate to many of these observations. First of all, when I'm happy, and if someone comes and tells me, hey, you seem to be happy, go ahead and do this, you'll become unhappy, I'm pretty sure I will not do it. None of us will want to do it. We accept happiness as a natural state. That's the first observation that came to my mind. Now, the next thing is, when you're in pain, any sort of a discomfort or suffering, we want to get rid of it. So these are the two key observations that I've had. Now, I also noticed that we become happy when we get what we want. We want something, we get it, we are happy. And when we don't get it, we are not happy. So it seems to me that somehow the happiness was related to getting what we want. And sadness seems to be not getting what we want. So, is there still a definition of happiness? I didn't find one till 2015. I came across this beautiful definition by Swami Chinmayananda. And it defines happiness in a very, very simple equation. And it corroborates with some of the observations that I've had here. It says that happiness is number of desires fulfilled divided by the total number of desires that we have. Beautiful working definition. And how does it work? At the end of the day, if you look at it, irrespective of whether you're on a spiritual path, whether you're on a materialistic path, at the end of the day, this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to fulfill our desires, fulfill our wants, fulfill our needs. That's what we're trying to do. And it's not a bucket list. It's a much larger than a bucket list. It's a small thing that would make you happy today. It could be a large thing. But at the end of the day, it's a desire that we're trying to fulfill on a daily basis. But here is a problem in this equation. The problem is, if we start chasing our desires and start fulfilling our desires, these desires gives rise to additional desires. For example, let's say that we want to buy a home. We start buying a home and we buy the home, and suddenly there are 20 more things that are required for the home to make us more comfortable. Those quote unquote become now desires that you start going and getting it. And so what happens is that as you start fulfilling the numerator, the number of desires also keeps increasing. And when the number of desires keeps increasing, then over a period of time, it becomes difficult for you to figure out whether you can fulfill all the desires or not. And here is the real issue. The real issue is that the number of desires in the denominator, the total number of denominators, first of all, we don't know. Second thing is, as we start fulfilling any of our desires, new ones keep coming in. So it grows exponentially compared to the time what we have, the resources what we have to fulfill those desires. Now, that leads to a state of incompletion in us. There's always something that we want to get to us, to ourselves, to complete ourselves. Okay. When I say get to ourselves, it could be, adding something to us or even getting rid of something from us. Getting rid of something. Great example is losing weight, for example, right? I don't like the way that I look. I want to reduce weight. That's a desire, although it's letting go of something. So there are three broad categories of desires, and I talk about this in my book as well. The broad categories of desires are sorrow, ignorance, and time. So sorrow is anything that makes us uncomfortable, unhappy today, right? It could be, I want this promotion, but I don't get it, right? That's the sorrow. Ignorance is, there's so much in this world to know, but we have very little time. We have very limited resources to learn everything. And even if we know everything, or even if we experience all the happiness, there is going to be a time when all of us are sure we are going to die. We just don't know when. So the number of desires that we have and the number of desires that we fulfill are always going to be limited by the time that we have. So there are two approaches to solving this problem of SIT, of getting rid of our sorrow, ignorance, and death. One, I would call it as a painting approach, what is called as a numerator-driven approach, where it's a standard operating procedure, what each one of us have. There's a want and a need, go ahead and fulfill it. There's a suffering, figure out a way of getting rid of it. No problem. It's like painting. Take a white canvas, start painting one stroke at a time, one desire at a time, and then you get a perfect picture. The problem is it's never going to be a perfect picture because the numerator is constantly evolving. So the picture is going to be constantly evolving too. But there is a denominator-driven approach too, where the approach is to know yourself first and then chase the desires that are legitimate after we know who we truly are. And that's the approach of the user manual given to us by the creator who has created this entire universe. We are part of this universe. And we kind of figure out a way of and the user manual says, okay, know yourself first before you start chasing the desires. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the painting approach. The painting approach has a fundamental question. Okay, So first let's look at this chart. There is always a sense of limitation that we have, right? And we are trying to do something to fulfill the limitation expresses itself as a desire, and we try to fulfill that. And when we try to do some change, and we also realize that every change involves a loss. For example, I buy a home, suddenly my bank balance goes to zero, or maybe even I have to borrow money, and then I don't have time or I don't have money to take my vacation that I've been planning for the last few years. That could be a loss that I would experience. And then it gives rise to incompletion again. So the fundamental problem that we have is that we will continue to feel incomplete if we follow the painting approach in our life. And over a period of time, once we start experiencing life, we also will realize that this completeness, the feeling of completeness, cannot be gained by acquiring objects from outside, gaining new experiences, building new relationships. We cannot get that completeness. That's the problem statement, and that's the fundamental problem. So the question is, where does this limitation come from? And do we know who really feels limited? It may seem like a trivial question, what I'm asking you, but actually, think about it. Do we know who is that person, who is that entity within us feels limited? Is it the body? Is it my mind? Is it my emotions? Is it my intelligence? What is it that's feeling limited? On the sculpting approach, let's look at the sculpting approach. Imagine for the moment, okay, what if there was some sort of a perfection within us? Okay, and I picked this example when I read this book by Oliver Stone, a great book called Agony and Ecstasy. You might want to read it. It's about Michelangelo. And Michelangelo painted Sistine Chapel. He also did multiple sculptures, and incidentally, he loved to sculpt. Somebody asked him, okay, hey, here is this brick of marble that you are, going to turn it into a beautiful sculpture like David. How do you know? How can you do it? He just said, when I look at that brick of marble, I see that perfection inside, the sculpture that I really wanted out. And then all I have to do is chip out the rest. And then the sculpture automatically emerges. Now, what if there was an entity, for the moment, make this as a hypothesis. What if there was an entity within us that was already perfect? That is going to be the complete antithesis to what we experience. Sorrows, ignorance, or even the limitation of time or death. But if it is only happiness, knowledge, and existence, what if it was there within us? And if it was there, what if there was an approach that was available that we can sculpt out the rest of the things and manifest that? That's the sculpting approach. I'm going to pause here for a minute and to check with Vineet Chandarji if there were any questions relevant so far. Or maybe we can open up the audience for 2 minutes or 2 or 3 minutes for questions before I go on and talk about the sculpting approach a little bit more.
Thanks, Rajesh. So the one question which has come through is, could you speak briefly, unless it's part of the presentation later, about the distinction between happiness and fulfillment?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So fulfillment, if you ask me, is something that you feel that you don't have, and you want to get it, and then once you get it, you feel fulfilled. But it could be temporary fulfillment, and it could be when I say temporary, it could be for a day, for an hour, for years together. But is that going to be permanent? And what is permanent? That permanency is happiness. That's what I'm trying to say. So if you're able to figure out something that is going to fulfill you permanently, not till your death, forever, that's permanent. That's happiness.
Thank you. I don't think we have any more questions right now. So if you'd like to move on, and as the questions will keep rolling in, so maybe we can save them for the Q&A.
Sure. Okay. So I'm going to use the same chart that I showed you earlier on, and I deliberately hid something here so that we can differentiate between the sculpting approach and the painting approach. So the sense of limitation that drives us, that gives rise to desires in us and drives us to act and acquire objects or experiences in the world, is caused because of a fundamental misunderstanding of our identity. Who we are is not clear to us. And let's say that we are able to correct that sense of identity. Let's say we understand that sense of identity a little better. Then what happens is, maybe we will still go through the same path, but maybe the wordings, what you see in each of these pit stops here, they may be different, right? For example, you're not going to try to remove any limitation, because now you suddenly know that the limitation is not with material objects or material experiences, or it's something within us that we need to remove. That is not us, right? That's the limitation. The definition of limitation now has changed. Suddenly, it's no more that particular house that I need to buy or that particular vacation to Hawaii that I need to take. That is going to make me feel happy. But it's more about internally, okay, looks like there's something else that I need to remove because of this desire is coming up. And that's, as you go through this path, you will realize that, I'm sorry about that. There's one word here called moksha, but, please use that replacingly with as happiness, right? So you'll realize that the path to real happiness starts only at that point of time, where you are actually manifesting who you truly are. What is the intrinsically nature of us as individuals? We are manifesting that by removing all those things that we are not. Now, what exactly is this identity, right? So I have to get back to my story a little bit. So the sculpting approach led me to the mirror. And why I use the example of a mirror is that there are different types of mirrors, convex and concave mirrors, and multiple different types of mirrors. When you go in front of the mirrors will distort the image of who you truly are. Unfortunately, what happened was the different kind of approaches that I've read, let's say related to psychology, right from Freud or Jung, or even the Maslow's hierarchy theory, or the different behavioral theories that you talk about in the organization behavior, as well as individual motivational theories that you talk about, different personality books that you read about, or even great fiction books like one of the things that greatly influenced me was Ayn Rand's philosophy of Atlas Shrugged and Fountainhead and those books, and and multiple biographies where you try to look up to someone, say, okay, hey, can I model my life against like this person? All of them were sort of a wrong mirror. Not that they were bad. It's just that it was not applicable all the time, because the discontentment in me of completely being contented or happy was not there. It was there for some time. A new approach came in. They sent a new email came in, said, do these 3 things and you'll feel more happy. You do that, yeah, you feel happy, but does it remain for you with you all the time? Answer is no. So then I realized, okay, maybe there's a wrong mirror that I'm looking at, because it's a question of identity, right? If I want to look myself into the mirror, I need to get the right mirror so that my reflection is reflected rightly. That's when in 2015, it struck me that the Upanishads and the Gita are the right mirror, because, contrary to what several people think, the Upanishads and Gita are not the religious texts at all. They are textbooks of psychology, human psychology. They clearly tell you who you are and who you are not. And they ask us to differentiate it. They tell us the practices to do to identify who you are and who you are not. So this mirror, when I turned to that mirror, it led me to understand my identity clearly. And that's when the journey towards happiness started for me. Till the time, I was just living maybe an intellectual, animalistic life. So what is my self-identity? Who am I? Right? If you ask me that question, I want to explain this with a logic. This logic is known as Drik Drishya Viveka in Sanskrit. It's one of the texts. But in English, it's quite simply translated as the subject is always different from the object. Okay. Now, in any in an English sentence, I eat food. Food is always different from I, right? That's what I mean. And you might think it's a very trivial example, but um, please bear with me till we go through this logic, so you get a sense for where the mistake that has happened to us, because of which all our fundamental problems of limitation come to us. Okay? Now, as we go through some slides, one slide here, keep asking yourself this question: okay, who is the subject and what is the object? So if you look at the anything that's external to us, right? When I say external to us, the external to the body right now, the clothes that we wear, or the guitar, or the pizza that we eat, or the car that we drive, or the home that we live in, they're all objects for us. Very clearly, nobody will ever claim that the pen that I'm going to use is me. It's a pen. It's an instrument that I want to use it. Therefore, it is not me. It's an object. It is something that I experience with. I see it, I feel it, I touch it. So very clear, right? Now, here is where the problem starts. What happens to the body itself, the body parts, the different body, our body? Sometimes we misunderstand this as subject, because you say, I'm hungry. When you say I'm hungry, is your body hungry, or your mind is saying you're bored, you want to eat something? You don't know that. We misunderstand it. Or when you go to a doctor, you say, I have a fracture in my hand. So when you say I have a fracture in my hand, that means you're experiencing the fracture in your body. That means your body is no more as the subject. There's somebody else behind the body. That's the subject, right? Now, maybe most people will even accept this, but here is the difficulty. What happens to the emotions that we have? Are we able to experience the emotion? Do we know when we get angry? Do we know when we are happy? Can we recognize that, okay, now I am happy, now I am sad, now I am upset? I think we all do. And because we all do that, because then I want to use this word loosely here now, because the English word object may not be rightly applicable to this, but it is also an object. It is not who we are, but it is something that we experience. Because we experience, it's an object. Now, this is where the mistake happens with most of us. Some of us mistake that the body is who I am. Some of us mistake the body and the mind is who I am. Some of us mistake that the mind is who I am. But there is an entity behind all of this, behind this universe, behind the body, behind the mind. I'm sorry, I should not be saying mind here. Mind is at the heart, behind the mind. That is the one which is a real experiencer of everything, including the body, the mind, the emotions, and the external world. And that experiencer is called as consciousness. It's just a word at this point of time, so stay with me. So who is that consciousness, right? Who is that? Now, think of this. This is beautiful sun and bright sunny day, and you have a pot of water, 3-4 pots of water. Now, the pot of water is reflecting the sun. Now, let's assume that this pot of water is intelligent, right? Now, that reflection is energizing this pot of water, and this pot of water is thinking, I am throwing away all this reflection, this light, therefore I am bright. But at the same time, it recognizes that it's limited by that pot, because the body, like what we have, limits that intelligence within it. And that intelligence misunderstands that it's limited by this body and whatever experiences that mind goes through. But what it does not realize is that it is actually that original sun, but somehow reflected in this particular body and mind. So who we truly are is that principle that is always complete, happy, aware of everything, never ignorant, and never needing anything. It doesn't even need anything to make it complete. You don't have to remove anything from it to make it complete. It is perfect the way it is. And that's who we are. And unfortunately, we don't realize that, because we make this mistake of thinking that the mind or the body, which reflects that particular intelligence, is who we are. So if I were to explain that with an example, here's how I would say. Now, the same sun is shining through. It's all the time shining, right? Now suddenly there's a complete cloud. Please ignore. I couldn't get a better picture on Google. Even this light that you see here, let's say it's completely dark sky. Our mind is completely clouding that particular entity, that principle, which is happiness and awareness, right? Now, that is a time when things don't work out for us. Then we need that trigger saying that, okay, I need something to be happy now. I need some new experience. I need to buy a new shiny object. I need to go do shopping. If I do shopping, maybe I'll be happy, right? And that cloud, let's say that, clears up a little. Oh, now I've taken my vacation to Hawaii. I'm going on vacation to Hawaii. Suddenly that cloud opens up a little, and that happiness, which is unlimited, just shines a little bit in that particular instant. And then again, the clouds in the mind shut off again. And then again, it goes off into a feeling that, we are not happy. Now, this is what happens in the numerator driven approach, right? Now, but what exactly is who we are is that imagine 1,000 infinite suns, right? As bright as our sun, infinite suns. Now, is there any way to stop those suns, the brightness of the suns at the same time? That is what it is. If you can imagine anything, any limitation that one can think of, saying that this is a limitation, and if you want to think of an antithesis for that, it is that. It is who we are, right? So that can never be stopped. But if we remove all that clouds of ignorance that we have in our mind about who we are, then automatically that brightly shines. That's the philosophy, what the denominator-driven approach leads us to. Now, we talked about this. I'm just going to skip over this. So basically, what I'm saying is that this sun, or this consciousness element that we have, the principle within us that we have, manifested, it needs a manifestation. Just as electricity, it goes through a tube light or a bulb, and then it gives a bright light. It can even go through a microwave, and it gets converted as microwave oven or a fridge, and then it cools something, or oven, and it heats up something. So this consciousness needs a medium, and the medium is a body and a mind. Different bodies, different minds. Yours, mine, the body of an animal or a tree. That's a body, a physical body, and a mind. It has some of them have rudimentary minds, some of them have evolved minds, like what we have, five sense organs. So when it manifests itself in just one body and mind, that person is known as an individual. Now, because of the mistake what we make, saying that the mind, which is reflecting that particular original consciousness, we think that we are separate from the rest of us. That starts the problem, the duality. That's where it starts the problem for us. And that thinking that, okay, this limitation, what I have, is because, I'm limited by the body. If I'm here today, I'm not there in New York. Or if I'm here today, I can't do many other things, right? I can't be in two places at the same time, for example, right? That's a limitation for us. So far, we kind of got to a place where we're saying, okay, hey, looks like there is a possibility there's somebody else within us who is actually who I am, but I don't know. I'm confused. How do I actually become that person, right? That's actually a very, very process that's described pretty vividly and pretty elaborately in all the scriptures or the user manual, what the creator has created for us. So I'm going to summarize the process in the next couple of slides. But here is what it is. The process is suitable for anyone who has understood that the numerator-driven approach of trying to fulfill a desire and achieving that happiness permanently is not working out. The person must have had that experience that, yes, looks like there must be a different way. If I have a room full of darkness, I can't take 1 month full of darkness every time, throw it away and expect the darkness to go away. I need a different approach, an approach of taking a lamp and bringing it inside the room. That's what I would need. So the logic, the approach is pretty different. And the approach is radical compared to what the numerator-driven approach is. But we have to use the logic, the intellect that we are all bestowed with, and understand it before we go ahead with it. So the key principles is we got to question logically with the open mind. First of all, we need to be open and question everything. Everything we have to question. And when we question it, slowly the clouds of ignorance that shroud our mind, they start moving away. And as they keep moving away, the inner brilliance, the inner happiness, the inner contentment, inner fulfillment, inner perfection starts manifesting itself. And then the most important thing is, today, if you look at it, all our limitations are limitations of somebody else, some object of who we are not, right? If I'm unhappy because I didn't get a promotion, that unhappiness is experienced in my mind. But my mind is not me. My mind is also something that I experience. So if I'd rather than live a vicarious life of my mind and trying to fulfill what my mind wants, I want to live an authentic life of who I am. If I'm already happiness, I want to get rid of all those things that I don't want. I have to figure that thing out and get that clouds removed. And if I'm not able to do it today perfectly, I would rather fake it till I make it. I assume that I'm already perfect, right? Internally. And then start changing those behaviors, removing those chips of the block to manifest the true person that who we are. That's what it is all about. So here is what it is. The English word ego is a very, has a very different meaning. It says it's like a person's self-esteem or self-worth, but actually, the ego does not mean self-esteem or self-worth in the traditional sense, coming from the user manual of the creator. The creator says that ego basically means the moment we identify that I am the body, I am the mind, then, or the sense organs, the 5 sense organs that we have, then we are making a mistake. And the moment we make that mistake, what happens is that when we interact with people or objects or time or the space, when I say space, I mean, let's say the power or the position that we are in, things like that, basically the entire world that you look at it. We start coloring the entire world with the lens what we have worn. Okay, this lens is different for each one of us because each one is very different in our mental construction. So we view the same thing in different ways. Now, because of this passage of this interaction going through this entire world, it gives rise to sorrow, ignorance, and ultimately we even think that we end up dying. Why? Because at the end of the day, the likes and dislikes, I want this, I desire this, I don't want this, I want to get rid of this, is coming here. But this is not the real person. This is somebody else's life. We have to live this person's life. And how do we do that? What if we reorient our entire life to reduce the attachment that we have to our likes, to our dislikes, and negate these demands placed on us, the real person, by my sense organs, by my mind? I can tell you, I'll narrate a small personal story. I love sweets, and I just can't stop myself from eating sweets. The problem is, intellectually, I know I should not eat. But the moment I see it, the taste overpowers my intellect, and I go ahead and end up eating it. I create my own life. I create my own pain because the more I eat it, I end up having trouble with my health. So rather than living the life of a mind and senses, I want to figure out a way how I can live a life of this real person. And that's when we can manifest Satchitananda, as what the philosophy of Upanishads call it. The Upanishads just say, you are already perfect. You are already complete. You just have to get rid of all those things that you are not. Now, recommended spiritual practices for doing this. I'm just summarizing things that I have personally, what I have personally benefited. Different people have different philosophies. There's nothing wrong with it. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is to recognize what needs to be done by living an authentic life rather than living a vicarious life of somebody else. So karma means doing work. Doing work is okay. Even everybody does work. Even an animal does work. But is it what it is? If we have to train our mind, we need to move from karma to karma yoga. And what exactly does it mean? Going back to the principle of attachment and ego and reducing the dependence or attachment to the body and mind, it basically means not feeling that ownership of, I did this, therefore I need to get the benefit of it. That we have to reduce the dependency of that feeling within us. Now, the next step is, we may still feel trapped within this body, this 6 feet body, maybe 1.5 feet wide body. We may feel trapped, but we can expand our minds to include everybody else, to include the universality, the things about, some of these recent challenges that we've seen in terms of, the racism and all that will just vanish the moment you say, I'm not this person who in the way that I am seeing myself. I'm the universal person. It's just that I'm manifesting in different bodies in different ways. It just goes away automatically. And these become an essential step for us to really, really understand who exactly we are. And that's the lifelong process, maybe even multi-lifelong process. So that's what it says. There's no gradation that, this is step 1, step 2, step 3. Different philosophies have different ways, but I thought this worked for me, so that's why I'm presenting in this particular fashion. But definitely there are different ways of looking at it. But the principle is quite clear. At the end of the day, we got to figure out ways of how to attenuate the ego, the sense of attachment that we have towards the mind and body. I wrote this book, and people ask me, what do I recommend, right? Where do I start today, right? So I'm going to answer to you in 4 different ways. We start with where we are. Our life is our starting point. Today is our starting point. Now, if you say, what am I going to do today? I'm saying the only thing that I'm requesting you is to convert your work, any work that you do. The Creator has given us certain talents and abilities. Those talents and abilities have to be used for selfless work, not to aggrandize our mind or our senses or our body, okay? But to create that work for the larger benefit. So if we stop claiming doership, saying, I did this, therefore I want that, I think that's where we should start. Second thing is the right mirror. I would say, it may be intuitively easy for many of you to understand that, yes, there is somebody else within me, but who wants to break open this whole body mind construct and come out. It may not be intuitively easy for you to understand. It doesn't matter. But just like we study any subject, we have to discover the existence of this particular entity within us and claim that that's us, right? For which we have to go through the process of understanding what it is. And I would recommend 3 texts: Tattva Bodha, Atma Bodha, one of the, it's the same, Druk Drishya Viveka, and I shared with you the logic that we talked about, and then the Bhagavad Gita. Third thing is, we need to continuously exercise our intellect, our ability to reason, okay? We have to keep inquiring the purpose of our life. First of all, ask the question, what is my self-identity today? Am I defined by my professional career? Am I defined by the roles that I perform in my life? Am I defined by my relationship? Am I defined by my money, by my friendships? What is it that is my self-identity today, right? Where do I experience unhappiness? Why, right? And then figure out if it is at the body level, mind level, or at the intellect level. And then ask ourselves, is there a larger purpose to life other than living, eating, drinking, sleeping, procreating, and being scared? Even animals do that. Is there a larger purpose to my life? We have to ask that question. And then importantly, if we are starting today, we got to practice daily, commit daily. I would recommend 40 minutes for at least 6 months. If we do all these 4, I think it will help us to really, get into a direction to figure out that unbridled happiness, that who we truly are. And 40 minutes practice is very simple. 20 minutes, all of us, we do. Of course, in these days of Corona, some of us are COVID, some of us are less active, but I guess, 20 minutes of physical exercise is not a lot. But then controlled diet and 20 minutes of some sort of a ritual where you go into reflection or do some sort of a chanting will help us, along with, reading and inquiry will lead us there. So if you stick with a plan for 6 months, your own teaching, your discipline, and your teachings and reflection will guide you to really become who you truly are. And that's the path that I've taken. And with that, I want to thank all of you, thank Vinitji and Princeton for this opportunity to give this talk. And Vinitji, I would request you to, let me know if I'd be happy to take any questions and answer any questions. It can be interactive or, on the chat, whichever way that you like.
Sure. Thank you so much. So we will go ahead and open it up for questions. And I've got a number of questions that have already been chatted to me. So we'll start there. And perhaps if there are others come in, I'll try my best to get to them as well. So just to kind of go down the list, one of the questions that came in asks, what if the desires that we chase are existential and critical? So, for example, if someone is unable to earn enough money for food, right, in a very practical way, then the lack of fulfilling that desire also causes us sadness. Is this not a real problem faced by all humans that they can't avoid, and therefore we can't avoid sadness? So what of those, desires that seem to be so existential that there's no real question of, taking the denominator approach?
That's a great question, and I used to struggle with this for a long time, but the answer is pretty intuitive, right? For example, if we dream of eating a five course meal today, when we don't even have something to eat for the next meal, whatever it is, I think there's no harm in dreaming, but the first and foremost step is to survive today. So go ahead and find that particular meal, whatever that needs to be done. The aspiration can be here for a 5-course meal, but I have to eat today, now, right? Maybe I will not get this 5-course meal today, maybe a few days later, but I have to survive today. So the needs, the essential needs, what we have, what we define, the needs and desires are defined by us, and our intellect, we have to define what it is. The existence, if our very existence is threatened, I'm out in the desert, and I see, I'm thirsty, and at that point of time, I can't think of anything other than water, right? And the only thing that I can think of at that time is, look for that particular place, that oasis where I can go find some water. And that's what we have to do. It's a very practical, intuitive approach. And even the scriptures say that. They say that it's dharma, artha, kama, moksha. It says first is your needs, just as in the Maslow hierarchical needs. First, we got to fulfill our needs. Now, once we fulfilled our needs, then there's a discontentment in the mind. Okay, what next, right? Then you go into the desires. Once you go into the desires, what next? That's when you'll realize the futility of addressing the desires. And then you say, okay, looks like I need to take a different approach of what that self-actualization that Maslow talks about. This is what it is. We are already there. We just don't know. We just have to change the approach.
Yeah, thank you so much. It sounds like there's and this is kind of one of the other questions that was asked, is there a distinction then between genuine needs, even material needs, and desires of the sort that you're talking about that we might learn to rise above or eliminate? And it sounds like you were touching on that, but just to clarify then, are you making a distinction then between sort of basic human needs and superfluous desires?
Yeah. So let's take this example, right? Let's go through a simple case study, right? Let's say someone is feeling hungry. Okay, I am hungry. So what do they need? They need some food to fill their stomach. That's all. Now, if the person says, I am hungry, but I'm not good enough with a McDonald's burger or an In-N-Out burger, but I need to go and, go into the most poshest restaurant in New York downtown, and then spend maybe $500 for a meal along with a bottle of wine. Then now the needs and desires are very clear to understand. It's no more filling the stomach. Filling the stomach is need. But then the fact that you want to fill the stomach in a particular way, that becomes a desire. I'm not saying that's wrong. All I'm saying is I'm making the distinction, right? Maybe $500 for a meal may not be expensive or may not be extravagant for someone. That's okay if he spends it. But the person in question should determine whether that's a need or a desire for him based on their circumstances.
Yeah. Thank you. Moving along to our next question. When you were speaking, Rajesh, about subjects and objects, one of the questions is asking, is it not more accurate to say that I am both subject and object at any given time? When I say, for instance, I am sad, I am aware of the sadness as something separate from me, but I also actually feel sadness. So how does knowing that I'm the subject and not the object practically help me to not be sad or to be happy?
Actually, this took a lot of time for me to understand, and here is how I understood. Right, at the end of the day, uh, uh, let's say that you're driving a car, okay, and you are experiencing the movement of driving in the car, but it's the but are you actually different from the car? Answer is yes, no doubt. Nobody will say no. So now let's say the car, you're just taking a turn, and there's you hit the curb, and the car, you have a huge dent on your car. Now, God forbid it should not happen. Let's say that you're just driving off the showroom with your brand new car and you hit the curb. At that point of time, you will feel so terrible. It has happened to me, and that's why I'm using this example. You'll feel so terrible because you have identified yourself so much with the car on that first day, right? You'll feel so terrible. You'll feel sad. You'll feel as if a part of you has been hurt. But in reality, is it what it is? It is not. The car is not you, right? Likewise, the shirt that I'm wearing is not me. If it gets torn, I just change it, right? The body is not me. If my hand is fractured, I'm not going to sit down and cry all my life. I lose my hands. I'm done. It's okay. Move on, right? I feel sad today. Yes, I feel sad because I identify myself with my mind. The whole practice is flip it. Not identify yourself with your mind, because that's not who you truly are. That's where the spiritual practice comes in.
Yeah, it seems like often we talk about having a mind, but in terms of the way that we actually act, or we get taken, kind of carried away by it, it's almost like we're a mind. And so I'm hearing you saying, you're making that differentiation. I have a car, but I am not the car. I have a mind. I have a body, but I'm not the mind. I'm not the body.
Correct. And it may be hard for some of us to understand that, some of us to even accept it. But the point is, theoretically, yes, this is what the construct is. Practically, we got to work through, and there's a different steps that the scriptures mention. Because the subtle body, the non-physical part of us is much larger than what the physical part of us is, right? It has for example, in Kathopanishad talks of a model, a chariot. It models the human body and mind as a chariot drawn by 5 horses, and that's the symbol, the book cover also that I've used. The sense organs and the emotional mind, the intellect, the memories, and all of them put together is the mind, and all of them need to be trained one at a time, one step at a time, right? And as you progress it, that's the spiritual path. At the end of the day, when I say take off all those pieces of marble that is not relevant to reveal that perfection within that particular marble, what what Michelangelo did is what we need to do to ourselves, and that's the construct is given here. Sense organs all the way to intellect. The intellect has a wrong understanding. The sense organs has wrong cravings. The mind has wrong emotions. Okay, the memory, the mind, all of them misinterpret information that's coming from us from the external world. If somebody says something, we misinterpret, saying that, okay, the guy is insulting me. For what reason? The guy must have just said, okay, there's something on your shirt. Suddenly I feel offended about it for whatever reason, right? So, that when we do that, when we do this, when we take this path, a spiritual path, we start training our senses, mind, emotional mind, intellect, to even distinguish what is right, what is wrong. I could be in a situation where I don't know what is right and what is wrong. Then I go do something that may upset a lot of people. How do I know? In a relationship, for example, in a family, how does a parent know what is right to be done for a child? Everyone can claim it's a different situation. My situation is unique. Answer is yes, everybody's situation is unique. But is there a framework? That is the work that we need to do. Answer is yes, there is a framework. And that framework is the spiritual framework.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Yeah, I love this idea of a framework, and I wish we could discuss it more. We have arrived at the end of our time together, and we want to honor everyone's time. But I think that's a great note to end on, because one of the things that I was struck by so much in this book, which I highly, highly recommend, we put the link, the Amazon link, in the chat box. And if you missed that, please just go ahead and Google it or check it out on Amazon. One of the things I really appreciate so much about this book is, Rajesh, I think you do such a great job of presenting this Vedantic framework and this yoga framework that is so true to the tradition and the traditional sources, the Upanishads, the Gita, the Tattvabodha, like texts like that, and also so practically relevant for all of us, whatever our particular background or walk of life. So thank you for presenting this and sharing this framework with us tonight and in your book. I hope this is a start of many conversations to come. And we want to thank everyone for joining us tonight as well. I'm sorry if we didn't get a chance to address your question, but we're so glad you could join us. Thank you so much. Please continue to check in with Hindu Life Programming so we can bring you more events like this. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great night. And thank you again, Rajesh.
Thank you, everyone. And Vinny so much, so many thanks for hosting me. I really enjoyed talking. And if anyone needs to reach out to me, you have my coordinates. You can always reach out to me. Happy to help anytime. Hari Om.
Thanks so much. Hari Om. Good night,